Hello and welcome to the Barbican. My name is Rachel Leach and I'll be with you for the next 20 minutes or so in the run-up to tonight's live stream concert, which you can see on YouTube at 7. So tonight we've got two last works. In the second half we've got Mahler's mighty 10th Symphony in its completed state, completed by Derek Cooke, and in the first half we have The Rose Lake by Sir Michael Tippett. So Tippett wrote this piece in the 90s and it was first performed by this very orchestra here at the Barbican under the baton of Sir Colin Davis. And I've got somebody with me now who has been immersed in the world of Michael Tippett, his biographer, Oliver Soden. Welcome.
Thank you, nice to be here.
So you've had a day of Tippett, haven't you, at St Luke's doing the Discovery Day?
A whole day of Tippett, so I'm nicely warmed up now.
Nicely warmed up. So can you tell us, difficult question, in a nutshell, who was Michael Tippett?
It's a very large nutshell, because
Yeah.
he was such an astonishing person, but I'm biased naturally, but surely one of the great 20th century composers, and I don't say British composers, one of the great 20th century composers of international stature and importance, whose life spans the century, whose music spans most of the century, a giant of a figure, and it's lovely to hear his music again after a long time.
Did you meet him? I'm guessing you probably didn't meet him.
I shared the earth with him for 8 years, but to my knowledge, I never saw him. And the last time this piece was performed, I think I was 15, so
Wow.
it'll be the first time I've ever heard it live, so I'm very excited.
Did you see some rehearsals today?
I didn't, unfortunately, so
Right.
it'll be even more of a treat.
Yeah, this is a
evening.
big deal.
Big deal for me, I'm very excited.
So the background to this piece, did he know that it was going to be his last major work?
I'm not sure any composer knows, because, after 75, say, or, any work could be his last, but he was 86 when he began to think of it. He was 90 when it was premiered. Surely he might have had a good bet at thinking, perhaps this will be the last one, perhaps this will be a farewell. And it is struck through with some of that, but there's something amazingly youthful and experimental about it too. And
you mentioned to me earlier there's an amazing date coincidence today.
I went to look at the manuscript score last week and I turned to the last page to see when he finished it, because I didn't know. And he dated it on the day of completion, 22nd of April, which is today's date, precisely 25 years ago. I don't think anybody knew about that coincidence when they were programming. So he's up there somewhere. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up when I saw that. Amazing.
That is an incredible coincidence. Yeah.
He's organising things.
Yeah. I think I should bring in now another person, which is Sally Groves, who was the creative director of Schott for 40 years. And in that role, a personal friend to many, many composers for the 20th century, but particularly Sir Michael Tippett. So what was he like?
He was a wonderful, generous, lovely man, and he loved women. He loved strong women. He related to women a lot, so I felt very comfortable with him. I knew him from the age of about 12 or 13 because my father conducted Tippett from way back, and indeed conducted a performance of A Child of Our Time that Simon Rattle went to and cried at.
Wow.
So yes, so I knew him very well, and he was inspirational person, totally charismatic.
So when this piece was being created, as we've said, he was towards the end of his life.
Yes.
What was his spirits like? Was he thinking of death and things like that, or was that not anywhere?
No, he wasn't thinking of death, but life was hard because he was pretty much blind. He had a degeneration in at least one eye, if not both, and so he was only able to see very small bits of anything because he had great big black dots in front of his eyes. And so we at Schott made manuscript paper that got progressively larger and larger and larger till the notes were, as Oliver said today in the study day, they were the size of peas. And he would scratch and scratch so hard that he went through the paper. It was a struggle to write everything down, but he knew what he was doing. He knew what he had to do. It was just the technical thing of getting it down on paper.
And is this in the days before things like Sibelius software, or was he too?
That wouldn't have made any difference. That wouldn't have made any difference.
No.
It doesn't make any difference now. You still have to have a skilled editor to get the music into the computer, so it's that process. It remains essentially the same as it remained for Brahms or Schumann or Elgar, as we know, or any composer.
And what is the role of publisher, really?
It's a combination of cheerleader and confidant. And you have to always think of the composer first, and the publisher is probably the only person who really thinks of the composer first. It's amazing how much the composer gets forgotten by everybody when they're organising a concert. They don't even think about inviting the composer sometimes. And the publisher has to believe in the composer absolutely, and has to see what the vision is of what the composer wants to create, and make sure that that gets as truthfully and closely as possible onto the podium, onto the stage, at the end of a very long process.
Yeah. Wow. I've got one last question. It's a bit cheeky. But I read a long time ago that he loved Coronation Street. Is that true?
EastEnders.
Oh, EastEnders. Oh, I'm a bit, as a northerner, I'm a bit
He used to sing the tune.
Really?
And tears would come to his eyes.
Almost every... I mean, he had the television on non-stop. And actually, there's a serious point to be made here, in that when we hear the piece, I think we will hear Tippett almost channel hopping as different motifs flash up and are juxtaposed with huge contrast between them. And television of all kinds, from posh documentaries to soap operas.
Flip Side of Dominic Hyde. And what was
Dallas.
the one? Dallas.
All
yes.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
But it burrows its way more than any...
Lake 7.
Yes.
Wobbly scenery.
I wasn't
yes.
even born, so don't, you know. But that burrows its way into the way he structures his music, I think. You know, televisual techniques of cutting and dissolving and editing a piece almost, as if from an edit suite. More than in any other 20th century composer I can think of, television is a huge influence.
But also
on
it
him.
says he was just a normal guy. You know,
yes.
just a normal guy who watches telly.
After work was over, it was...
And kids loved him. My son loved him. You know, as easy as pie with Tom, and all the people that knew him and worked with him who had kids. He was like a Pied Piper.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for bringing him to life for us. I mean, it's really... And what's your book going to be called? Just give it a plug.
Oh, it's very boringly titled Michael Tippett, The Biography.
Well, what else?
What else could it be?
And when will we see that book?
Next spring,
Brilliant.
if I finish in time. But
Well,
I'm
sure
almost there.
Brilliant. Well, enjoy tonight's performance.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you for
will.
talking to me.
Thank you.
So to give us a background to the Rose Lake and what to listen out for, here's a short film that was made by David Owen Norris earlier this week.
Sir Michael Tippett designed The Rose Lake to be his last piece. It was premiered by the LSO under Sir Colin Davis in 1995 to mark Tippett's 90th birthday. Tippett called it a song without words for orchestra, and it marks a return to his lyrical style. The piece depicts dawn to dusk at a saltwater lake in Senegal that changes colour from pale green to pink as the sun rises higher. After a mysterious dawn introduction, Tippett writes in the score, "The lake begins to sing." It sounds almost like the beginning of Wagner's Ring Cycle, horns, clarinets and strings. After the song has ended, the woodwind have a contrasting spiky rhythm. And later, Tippett asks the rototoms to sound jaunty. Then we have a variation on the song. The lake song is echoed from the sky. One of the most exciting bits in the next interlude is given to the trombones, their right arms absolutely frantic. Then another variation, the lake is in full song. two orchestral lines at once, with the smooth string one predominant. My favourite note in the whole piece is given to the tuba, transforming that string sound that we've just heard. There's a sort of fugue for oboes first and then on bassoons. Another variation as the sun begins to set. The lake song leaves the sky, a reflection of the original shape. And finally, the lake sings itself to sleep. Spiky chords to end, and by the last one, for trumpets and trombones, Tippett writes plop, as some little creature drops into the safety of the dark lake.
I'm now joined by LSO Principal Percussionist Neil Percy. You've performed this work a number of times, haven't you?
I have. I was lucky enough to play it about 2 or 3 times with Sir Colin Davis, who of course gave the premiere with the LSO. It's always such an incredible piece to play, incredibly challenging for all of the members of my section, but a wonderful legacy that we have with Sir Colin, and that mantle is now taken up by Sir Simon, so it's wonderful to be able to say that I've not only played it with Sir Colin, now we're getting to play it with Sir Simon, so it's terrific.
And how many percussionists on stage tonight?
9,
wow.
Rachel, 9 players. And I guess the focal point will be the rototom part, which my colleagues, incredible colleagues, Dave and Sam, are getting to play tonight. And that is 39 rototoms, which originally Tippett envisaged for 1 player.
Right.
Which would be kind of impossible. So one of my ex-colleagues of this orchestra, Simon Carrington, who did the premiere, decided, no, we can make this work, but it's going to need 2 players. So the parts that we play off, and from the premiere, the parts that everybody has played off since, were incredibly sorted out by Simon, and it works really well, but it's still a challenge, and you'll see Dave and Sam really having to work really hard in order to get all the notes in, but it sounds terrific. It's just an amazing sound.
A rototom is a drum.
It is.
And there's 39 of them.
There's 39 of them. So basically it's over 3.5, 4 octaves of chromatically tuned rototoms. So if you can imagine, they're set out like a keyboard. But of course, because they're drums, whereas a piano would be kind of, you know, that length, well, 39 rototoms are kind of 8 times the length of that. So that in itself proposes, poses logistic challenges.
So the guys playing them are going to have to move, basically. They're going to have to dance around.
Very quickly. Their inline skate technique is superb at the moment.
Wow. And what are you playing?
I'm playing the marimba,
right,
which goes in tandem with many bits of the rototom part, and it's a part I really enjoy playing. So there we go. So
just let's quickly switch to Mahler in the second half. So there's a famous muffled drum in that piece. Where's that coming from?
Militärtrommel. What is that? Is that a snare drum? Is it a tom-tom? Is it what is it? So Simon has said, I want a bass drum, which is what we normally play on. But then he said, I want it off stage, which again poses logistical problems because I'm on stage for most of it, and then you're going to see me delicately exit, and then you'll hear this, well, it's kind of like a bomb going off is how I would describe it. That's what's going to happen at the beginning of the last movement.
So you're playing it loud, but it's far away so that it sounds...
It's not that far away, actually. It's just in the cuckoo, which is just behind the stage. So it means that I have really good contact, you know, being able to hear the orchestra. And I can just about see Simon. I have got a monitor, but I can just about see him through the cuckoo as well. So it's not that far away, but it's far enough away and shielded from the orchestra, the audience's eyes. So it will be, oh crikey, what's going on there? So it's an amazing kind of effect. So first time I've actually had to do it in that way, but that's Sir Simon's way. So we're all really excited about it.
So it's a very busy night for you.
It's kind of busy.
Well, I'll let you get onto it then.
Fantastic.
Thank you for talking to me.
A pleasure as always.
Thank
Rachel.
you.
Thank
See you. So before I tell you a little bit more about the Rose Lake, I just want to make a small plea. The LSO are committed to bringing concerts like this to you wherever you are in the world and for free. But obviously these events cost money. So we would love it if you could give us a small donation, and we promise that anything you can give us, big or small, will go towards future events like this. If you're interested in making a donation, look out on the bottom of the screen where you'll find out how to do that, and that will come up at various points during this evening's entertainment. So the Rose Lake, we've already heard it was Tippett's last piece, written in the 1990s as he approached his 90th birthday and performed for the first time right here at the Barbican Hall under the baton of Sir Colin Davis back in 1994. And essentially it is a tone poem. It is telling the story of this amazing lake in Senegal that changes its colour as the light fades. The lake starts off green and it gradually turns to pink as the sun goes down. So what we essentially have are 5 songs without words for full orchestra, and in between them smaller episodes that have a feel of a toccata. They've got a lot of notes in them, they're very rhythmic, very filled with ostinato. And so we hear the lake wake up, we hear it sing to the heavens, we hear it in full voice, and then we hear it start to fade and put itself back to sleep again. It's a concerto for orchestra, so the different sections of the orchestra get to show off. And there are particular solos worth looking out for from the tuba, the bassoon, many others, and of course we've got these rototoms, 39 of them in all, across the middle of the stage and played by percussionists David Jackson and Sam Walton. That's all coming up at 7 o'clock on YouTube, and I'll be back at the interval for more chat about Mahler 10.